On Global TV News Express, Presidency debunks reports claiming President Tinubu critically ill. In business, federal government launches electronic fiscal platform to crack down on tax evasion. On the foreign scene, Boko Haram poses threats on Lake Chad Islands. And in sports, 3SC assistant coach Oluwakere dies after collapsing in training. Hello and welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to News Express on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Priscilla Obasi. A quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times 276. Now the news in detail. The presidency has debunked a report by the International Center for Investigative Reporting, ICIR, claiming that President Bola Tinubu is critically sick and in critical condition. The president's media aide, Bayo Onanuga, dismissed the rumor as false and baseless. The center, in a recent publication, alleged that preparations were underway by President Tinubu's medical team to fly him abroad for urgent medical attention. President Bola Tinubu has appointed Tajuddin Abbas, Speaker of the House of Representatives, to chair a reconciliation committee of the All Progressives Congress APC in Bauchi State. A statement issued by Musa Kirishi, media advisor to Abbas, stated that the committee held its inaugural meeting in Abuja, with Abbas expected to resolve the internal wrangling in the party's Bauchi State chapter. Members of the committee include Maimala Buni, Governor of Yobe State, Yakubu Dogara, former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Abdullahi Gumel, Tinubu's assistant on National Assembly matters, Senate, and many others. Nigeria's Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, says aviation workers have suspended the plan to shut down the country's aviation sector from Monday. Keyamo disclosed this in a statement on his X account, in which he said the unions, in a joint statement, had agreed to suspend the action to engage the government. Keyamo noted that he will work with the unions to resolve all their demands one after the other. The Nigerian Meteorological Agency, MET, has predicted thunderstorms and rain from Monday to Wednesday across the country. The agency's weather outlook, released in Abuja, envisaged morning thunderstorms on Monday over the northern region, with moderate rains over parts of Sokoto, Kebbi, Adamawa, and Taraba states. The weather outlook also forecast thunderstorms with moderate rains expected over parts of Bauchi, Borno, Kaduna, Kano, Jigawa, Taraba, and Adamawa states later in the day. In the meantime, the federal government has forecast heavy rainfall over a 5-day period that may lead to flooding across 15 states in the north and 68 locations. The heavy rainfall warning issued by the National Flood Early Warning System Center of the Federal Ministry of Environment called on stakeholders and residents to take urgent precautionary measures, stating that the affected areas are expected to experience rainfall likely to cause flooding from August 10 to August 14. The warning comes as the National Emergency Management Agency said a total of 140,228 people in 21 states have been affected by floods so far in 2025. The Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TETFund, says it has released over 100 billion naira to selected tertiary institutions across Nigeria to expand training on medical sciences and address the shortage of healthcare professionals in the country. Chairman of the Trust Fund Governing Board, Aminu Masari, disclosed this in Katsina, noting that the intervention aligns with President Bola Tinubu's directive to reverse the brain drain in the health sector. Masari said 3 tertiary institutions in each geopolitical zone have each received 4 billion naira to execute projects and academic expansion targeted at boosting their capacity to admit to train more students in medical fields. In another development, the Nigeria Education Loan Fund has announced that a total of 449,000 39 students have so far benefited from its student loan scheme since its portal launched on May 24, 2024. In its latest report, released says the scheme has disbursed a total of over 86 billion naira as of August 6, 2025, saying its disbursement includes over 47 billion naira paid directly to 218 institutions as tuition fees and over 38 billion naira given to students as upkeep allowances. Ahead of Edo State senatorial and House of Representatives by-elections, the People's Democratic Party (PDP) and its candidate for the Edo Central senatorial election, Prince Joe Okeje, have urged the Independent National Electoral Commission and security agencies to be professional in their activities on the day of the election. They made these calls during their campaigns around communities in the district while speaking to journalists after a meeting with traditional rulers across the senatorial district, insisting that the Electoral Commission is under obligation to act professionally, just as he expressed confidence that he would win the election. Okeje said his priority would be to urge the federal government to fix federal roads in the senatorial district, all of which are in bad shape. The military has neutralized more than 100 terrorists during coordinated airstrikes, followed by ground assaults and clearances in Makakari Forest in Bakuyum local government area of Zamfara State. The development occurred in the early hours when the thunder of military aircraft and the relentless advance of ground troops signaled the beginning of an operation that will leave over 100 bandits dead, their motorcycles smoldering, and their household strongholds in ruins. A security expert, Zagozola Makama, says intelligence operatives of Operation Fansayama has tracked unusual movements across the Sunke, Kirisa, and Burukushe axis, which are well-known bandit havens. You are watching the live broadcast of News Express. When News Express returns, federal government launches electronic fiscal platform to crack down on tax evasion. Details coming shortly, plus business and sports stories on the other side of this break. Please stay with us. Thank you very much for staying with us. This is Global Television News Express on Global TV, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. Now we are on the business news, where the federal government has commenced the rollout of a national electronic fiscal system to modernize Nigeria's tax administration, curb evasion, and enhance transparency in revenue collection. In a statement, the special advisor on media to the Federal Inland Revenue Service chairman, Dare Adekambi, said that in less than 2 weeks since the launch, at least 1,000 companies representing 20% or more of more than 5,000 eligible firms have adopted the system and begun integrating with the FIRS MBS platform. The Federal Inland Revenue Service said the system, which incorporates an electronic invoicing solution known as Merchant Buyer Model, went live on August 1, 2025, after a successful pilot phase that began in November 2024. The Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry says the federal government reforms are transforming the livestock sector with the potential to raise its contribution to the country's gross domestic product to 5% by 2030. The Industry Director General, Agabaidu Jideni, said in a statement that the livestock sector could increase incomes by up to 40%, create about 20,000 jobs in the first 5 years, and generate foreign exchange through exports to high-demand markets in the Middle East and Europe. Agabaidu said this while unveiling the Chamber's upcoming annual National Livestock Development Summit, Trade Fair, and Exhibition scheduled for December 1 to 6, 2025 at the Adetokunbo Kayode San Trade and Convention Center, Abuja. The federal government says it is doubling down on efforts to make Nigeria self-sufficient in food production and is starting with one of the country's largest rice farms. Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, Senator Abubakar Kyari, visited the 1,300 hectares Jangwari rice farm in Awe, Nasarawa State, a flagship project engaging hundreds of youth and women in commercial rice production. Kyari noted that the Tinubu administration is determined to close the nation's food and demand gap, strengthen ties with state governments and private partners, and cut rice imports, while pledging continuous federal support and promised to return after harvest to assess progress. Moving on, Dangote Petroleum Refinery and Petrochemicals says it has commenced the receipt of 4,000 compressed natural gas powered trucks needed for its fuel distribution logistics program set to start on August 15. In a statement, the company said the initiative aimed to transform the fuel distribution landscape within Nigeria by reducing logistics costs and enhancing supply efficiency for customers. The Group Chief of Branding and Communication, Dangote Industries Limited, Anthony Chiajina, said the commencement of the initiative marked a groundbreaking development in Nigeria's fuel distribution network. And now we'll go to the foreign scene, where Boko Haram terrorists have sown terror among those living around Lake Chad for 15 years. Surrounded by Cameroon, Chad, Niger, and Nigeria, the lake's countless islets serves as hideouts for its Islamist militants. Major General Ibrahim Salau Ali, the commander-in-chief of the multinational Joint Task Force, says the island isolates the terrorists from the outside, making it difficult for the military to reach them. Zara Nasir reports.
Surrounded by Cameroon, Chad, Niger, and Nigeria, Lake Chad's countless small islands serve as hideouts for the Islamist militants, whose violent campaign began in Nigeria's northeast before spilling into its neighbors. Jihadist attacks have surged in the wider Sahel region, though Boko Haram has lost ground to the army in the Lake Chad area. Major General Godwin Mutkut, the first commander of the multinational Joint Task Force, says the aerial bombardment has not been effective in neutralizing terrorists around the Lake Chad.
The reason why the Boko Haram terrorists hibernate on the island, because it isolates them from the outside, thereby making it very difficult for the military to reach them. That's their thinking. And so there are times we do bomb them from the air, but it's not too effective.
Major General Mutkut, who highlighted the challenge posed by the size of the Lake Chad, also said vast amount of resources is needed to tackle the terror threat in the area.
And as I told you, 800 islands. It's quite huge, quite big. And so we need a lot of troops to engage in this kind of operations.
The United Nations says in Chad's Lak province alone, more than 250 people have been forced to flee their homes. Zahra Nasser reporting for Global TV News.
Australia has confirmed that it will formally recognize a Palestinian state at the United Nations General Assembly in September. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese described it as a moment of opportunity, urging that lasting peace in the region requires permanent recognition of both Israeli and Palestinian statehood. Mukhtar Qasim brings us more.
This move aligns Australia with recent announcements from France, Britain, and Canada as global momentum builds in support of a two-state solution. Prime Minister Albanese said the decision is contingent on commitment from Palestinian Authority, including demilitarization, elections, and excluding Hamas from any future governance. Albanese emphasized that political solution must replace military response to break the cycle of suffering in Gaza, and until both Israeli and Palestinian statehood are secure, peace will remain fragile.
These detailed and significant commitments have been given even greater weight by the Arab League's unprecedented demand for Hamas to end its rule in Gaza and surrender its weapons to the Palestinian Authority. This is an opportunity to deliver self-determination for the people of Palestine in a way that isolates Hamas, disarms it and drives it out of the region once and for all.
Australia's decision adds diplomatic weight to international efforts to revive peace talks. Critics have warned that recognition without enforcement mechanism could be symbolic. The Albanese government insists it is a tangible step towards rebuilding Gaza and reinforcing the two-state framework. As September's United Nations General Assembly approaches, the world will be watching to see whether other countries will follow suit and whether this gesture will help reset a region long mired in conflict. Mukhtar Kasem, reporting for Global Television News.
United States President Donald Trump has pledged to evict homeless people from the nation's capital after days of using the belt taking federal control of Washington, D.C., where he has falsely suggested crime is on the rise. The announcement comes after Trump threatened to deploy the National Guard as part of a crackdown on what he falsely says is rising crime in Washington, D.C. The White House declined to explain what legal authority Trump would use to evict people from the city. The Republican president controls only federal lands and buildings in Washington. Pope Leo has invited the faithful gathered in St. Peter's Square to pray for peace and appealed for the release of hostages and an end to the increasingly desperate situation in Haiti. Speaking from the window of his study overlooking the square, the pontiff also welcomed peace deal between Armenia and Azerbaijan signed by the country's leaders. Haiti's government announced that it is implementing a 3-month state of emergency in the country's central region as gang violence surges. Assistant coach of Shooting Stars Sports Club Ibadan, Akin Oluworeke, has died after collapsing during a training session with a team in Ibadan, Oyo State. Oluworeke, who was said to have slumped on the pitch during the club's morning training and immediately attended to by medical personnel before being taken to a hospital. The cause of his death has not been officially disclosed, while a formal statement from the club is still being expected. Oluworeke, a former player with Sunshine Stars of Akure, was among the recently appointed members of 3SC's technical crew following the exit of Benga Ogubote-led coaching staff. And in sports, reigning Nigeria Premier Basketball League champions River Hoopers are looking to defend their title ahead of the new season, which will tip off on August 28th. Rivers Hoopers, who won their 6th league title last year by defeating Hoops and Reds 71-54 in the playoff final, and will look to retain their crown for the 3rd straight year. The organizers said the league will run from August 28 to November 16 and will be preceded by a registration period from August 11 to 28. Nigeria's senior men's basketball team, the Tigers, touched down in Angola Sunday ahead of 2025 FIBA Afro Basketball Tournament, which tips off on Tuesday. The team's final 12-player roster for the tournament was released before embarking on the trip to Luanda for the quadrennial showpiece set to run from August 12 to 24. The roster includes experienced NBA shooting guard Josh Okeje, who plies his trade with Western Conference franchise Houston Rockets, defensive specialist Kayodichiri Akobunde Ehogu, veteran forward Tilab Zani, veteran Stan Okoye, and guard Mike Nuga are some of the prominent names on the list. Moving on, Manchester City star Savino is set to join Tottenham Hotspur after Spurs open club-to-club talks to sign in Brazilian this summer. Fabrizio Romano says the negotiations are ongoing between Tottenham and City, as Savino is also open to move if both clubs can agree on fee for his transfer. Tottenham Hotspur manager Thomas Frank has already indicated Savino as a ideal player to help improve his squad. And that is it on Global TV News Express. A quick reminder, the Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and StarTimes channel 276. Kindly follow us across all social media platforms now showing on your screen using the handle at Global TV NG. I am Priscilla Obasi. Thank you very much for watching. Good evening.